Welcome to Warhammer 40k 8th edition Battle Report 34, 2,000 points, Chaos Demons of Nurgle versus Necrons. This will be the big rulebook Maelstrom of War mission, Cleanse and Capture, and we will be rolling for a random map deployment today. Let's take a quick look around the board at where the objective markers have been placed. Beginning with this 2 foot by 2 foot section, Objective Marker 1 has been placed right here next to this ruin. In this middle 2 foot by 2 foot section, Objective Marker 2 has been placed right here next to this ruin. In this third 2 foot by 2 foot section, Objective Marker 3 has been placed right here next to this ruin. On the other side of the board, Objective Marker 6 has been placed next to this crater in this 2 foot by 2 foot section. In this middle 2 foot by 2 foot section, Objective Marker 4 has been placed right here next to this ruin. And finally, in the 6th 2 foot by 2 foot section, Objective Marker 5 has been placed right here next to this crater. For this battle report, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will have 9 command points available to them, and the Necrons will have 8 command points available. Since this is the big rulebook Maelstrom of War mission, Cleanse and Capture, at the beginning of each of their turns, each army will draw up to 3 active tactical objective cards. And so now we will roll for the random map deployment, rolling a 2, which is Dawn of War. So on a roll of a 1, 2, or 3, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will begin deploying on the left side, and the Necrons will deploy on the right side, and on a 4, 5, or 6 it'll be the opposite, so the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will deploy on the right side, and the Necrons will deploy on the left. And so here's the roll. Rolling a 3, so the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will deploy on the left side, and the Necrons will deploy on the right. And now on a roll of a 1, 2, or 3, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will begin to deploy first, and on a 4, 5, or 6, the Necrons will begin to deploy first. Rolling a 1, so the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will begin to deploy first. We will be back after the deployment. So the deployment is now finished. The Necrons finished deploying first. Let's take a quick look around the board at where each army placed all of their units. Beginning with the Necron deployment, since they finished first, going from right to left down the deployment line from the Chaos Demons of Nurgle perspective, we have the first squad of 10 Necron warriors sitting on Objective Marker 6. Behind them is the Cryptek, also sitting on Objective Marker 6. And behind the warriors and the Cryptek is the first Night Scythe. When this Night Scythe was set up on the board, the squad of 10 Immortals and the Necron Overlord, who is their warlord, were placed onto the Tomb World to come in later in the game. Moving along, we have the first Ghost Ark, which has a squad of 10 Necron warriors embarked inside. Then we have the squad of 6 Canoptic Wraiths. Next is the first Annihilation Barge. After that, we have the second Annihilation Barge, the second Night Scythe, and finally the second Ghost Ark with a squad of 10 Necron warriors embarked inside. Moving over to the Chaos Demons of Nurgle deployment, going from left to right down the line, from Necron's perspective, we have the first Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings, the first squad of 6 Plague Drones, the Great Unclean One armed with a Doomsday Bell and Corruption. Behind the Great Unclean One is the first squad of 10 Plague Bearers, the Warlord Rodigus, the second squad of 10 Plague Bearers, the Great Unclean One armed with Doomsday Bell and Plague Flail, the second squad of 6 Plague Drones, the third squad of 10 Plague Bearers, and finally, the second Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings. For a full overview of both armies with all of the war gear that they are bringing, please check out the pregame show, which was released at the beginning of this group. The link for the pregame show will be in the description down below. And now the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will attempt to seize the initiative. They are looking for 6, and they successfully seize. So let's move into Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 1. Going into Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 1, a reminder that the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have 9 command points available, and the Necrons have 8 command points available. At the beginning of the turn, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle drew 3 new tactical objective cards, and they drew Supremacy, scored D3 victory points if you control any 3 objective markers at the end of your turn, Mission Critical Objective. When this tactical objective is generated, roll a D6, score 1 victory point if you control the corresponding objective marker. If the corresponding corresponding objective marker was controlled by your opponent at the start of your turn and you control it at the end of your turn, score D3 victory points instead. So here's the roll for that, and it will be objective marker 5. And overwhelming firepower. Score 1 victory point if an enemy unit was destroyed during the shooting phase of your turn. If 3 or more enemy units were destroyed during the shooting phase of your turn, score D3 victory points instead. And objective marker 5 is this one right here, close to the Necron deployment zone. So going into the movement phase, this squad of Plague Bearers is going to move up the board up to 5 inches. And they will finish their movement like so, and they are now within 3 inches of the center of objective marker 2. Next, Rodigus is going to move up the board up to 7 inches, and he will also declare an advance. And here's his advance roll, rolling for 4 additional inches, getting 11 inches of total movement. And he will finish his movement right there. Now the Great Unclean One, armed with Corruption, is going to move up the board up to 7 inches, and he will also declare an advance. And here's his advance roll, rolling 1 additional inch for 8 inches of total movement. And the Great Unclean One will finish its movement right there. This squad of 6 Plague Drones is now going to move up to 10 inches up the board, and they will also declare an advance. And here's their advance roll, rolling for 5 additional inches, and they will get to add 1 thanks to the instrument for 6 inches of advance and up to 16 inches of total movement. And they will finish their movement like so. Now this Demon Prince of Nurgle is going to move up to 12 inches up the board, and he will also declare an advance. And here's his advance roll, rolling for 3 additional inches, getting 15 inches of total movement. And the Demon Prince will finish its movement right there. Now this squad of 10 Plague Bearers is going to move up the board up to 5 inches, and they will also declare an advance. And here's their advance roll, getting 5 additional inches for up to 10 inches of total movement. And they will finish their movement like so. Now the Great Unclean One, armed with Doomsday Bell and Plague Flail, will move up the board up to 7 inches, and he will also declare an advance. And here's the advance roll, rolling just 1 additional inch for up to 8 inches of total movement. And the Great Unclean One will finish right there. The second squad of 6 Plague Drones will now move up the board up to 10 inches and will also declare an advance. And here's the advance roll, rolling 4 additional inches plus 1 thanks to the instrument for 5 inches of advance and 15 inches of total movement. Right to there. The second Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings is going to move up the board up to 12 inches, and he will also declare an advance. And here's the advance roll, rolling for 2 additional inches for 14 inches of total movement. And he will finish right there. Finally, this squad of 10 Plague Bearers will move up the board up to 5 inches. And they will finish like so. Going into the Psychic phase for Chaos Demons of Nurgle, turn 1, this Great Unclean One is not within range to cast any psychic powers. This Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings will attempt to manifest Smite onto this squad of 10 Necron warriors, because they are the closest enemy unit within 18 inches and also visible. And so Smite has a warp charge value of 5. And it passes with a 7. So it will do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 1 mortal wound. So, 1 Necron warrior will be killed off. The other Demon Prince of Nurgle is not within range to cast any psychic powers. But the Great Unclean One with Plague Flail is just within 18-inch range to cast Smite onto this Annihilation Barge. And so Smite now has a warp charge value of 6, and it passes with an 8. And it will do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 2 mortal wounds. So this Annihilation Barge will fall from 8 starting wounds down to 6. Finally, the Warlord Rodigus will attempt to manifest Miasma of Pestilence and Virulent Blessing onto himself. Starting with Miasma of Pestilence, which has a warp charge value of 6, and it passes with a 6. And now for Virulent Blessing, which has a warp charge value of 7, and that will pass with a 9. Which will activate Rodigus' special ability, Deluge of Nurgle, so the closest enemy unit suffers a mortal wound since he passed the psychic test with a 7 or more. And that will go on to this squad of Canoptic Wraiths. So 1 Canoptic Wraith in the back will fall from 3 starting wounds down to 2. So going into the shooting phase, this squad of Plague Drones will have the 3 models in front fire their Death's Heads into this squad of 9 Necron Warriors. The 3 models in the back of the Plague Drone squad are not within 12-inch range. So 6 attacks total from the 3 Plague Drones in front, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Demon Prince nearby, getting 3 hits and 1 reroll. And so here's the reroll, getting a 4th hit. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s thanks to itself. Getting 3 wounds, and one of them is a 6, but that won't matter since the warriors are only 1 wound apiece. No AP, so 3 4-up armor saves, passing 2 and failing 1. So 1 more Necron warrior will go down. leaving 8 left alive in the squad. Finally, the one plague drone with the demonic icon from this squad of plague drones is within 12-inch range to fire into this annihilation barge. So, just 2 shots hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, thanks to the Demon Prince, getting a miss and a reroll. And here's the reroll, still failing to hit. Going into the assault phase, there are no charges to declare, which means going into the fight phase, there are no fights to resolve. So going into the morale phase, this squad of Necron warriors lost 2 models this turn, but they have a leadership of 10, so it's impossible for them to fail a morale check after only losing 2 models. And so taking a look at the tactical objective cards, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle did successfully complete Supremacy for D3 victory points because they are currently holding 3 objective markers. And so here's the roll, and it will give them just 1 victory point. The Chaos Demons of Nurgle failed to complete Mission Critical Objective 5, and they also failed to complete Overwhelming Firepower. And at this point, Chaos Demons of Nurgle will throw Overwhelming Firepower away. And so at the end of Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 1, we currently have a score of 1 victory point for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle and 0 victory points for the Necrons. Going into Necrons turn 1, a reminder that the Necrons have 8 command points available, and the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have 9 command points available. So at the beginning of the turn, the Necrons drew 3 new tactical objective cards, and they drew Overwhelming Firepower, score 1 victory point if an enemy unit was destroyed during the shooting phase of your turn. If 3 or more enemy units were destroyed during the shooting phase of your turn, score D3 victory points instead. Age of the Machine, score 1 victory point if at least 1 enemy vehicle model was destroyed during this turn. If at least 3 enemy vehicle models were destroyed during this turn, score D3 victory points instead. If any of the destroyed vehicles were Titanic, score an additional 3 victory points. Finally, Dust and Ashes. When this tactical objective is generated, nominate a Necron's character from your army, score 1 victory point at the end of the game if this character is alive and on the battlefield. And the Necrons will nominate their warlord, the Overlord. And before we go any further, I do need to go back and make one quick correction, and that is that when the squad of plague drones shot at this squad of warriors, I mistakenly said that they hit on 4s, when in fact they hit on 5s because they did advance. Because they are assault weapons, they still get to fire even if they advanced, but they have to subtract 1 from hit rolls. And they did get 1 hit roll of a 4, and so it is possible that that hit roll of a 4 caused the wound, which got through the armor save and killed off one of the Necron warriors. So to make up for that, we will roll a d6, and on a 4-up, the Necron warrior comes back. And it will after rolling a 6. So this warrior right here was brought back. And now we will resolve the reanimation protocols roll for this squad of warriors. They have 1 model to roll for. And so on a roll of a 5-up, the warrior will make his reanimation protocols roll and will be brought back to life, but thanks to the Cryptek nearby, getting to add 1 to this roll, so looking for a 4-up and failing to get it with a 1. So the 1 downed warrior from the Nurgle Psychic phase will not be brought back this turn. Also at the beginning of the turn, thanks to Living Metal, this Annihilation Barge will go back up from 6 wounds to 7. Going into the movement phase for Necron's turn 1, we will begin with this squad of 9 Necron warriors, and they will reposition slightly in order to get the entire squad within 12-inch range of the squad of plague drones across from them. And they will finish their movement like so. Now the Cryptek will reposition a couple of inches to also get within 12-inch range of those plague drones. And he will finish right there. Next, the Necron warlord, the Overlord, is going to disembark out in front of this Silver Night Scythe. And he will disembark right there. Now the Overlord will move up an inch to get closer to the warriors. And he will finish like so. Now this Silver Night Scythe is going to pivot up to 90 degrees to its right, and then it will fly up the board at least 20 inches but no more than 60. And it will finish its movement right here. Next, this Black Ghost Ark is going to move over on the board up to 12 inches towards objective marker 6 and the squad of 9 Necron warriors. And the Ghost Ark will finish its movement right here. Next, this Annihilation Barge will move up the board a couple of inches to get closer to objective marker 4 and to make sure he's within 24-inch range of Rodigus. And it will finish like so. Now, this squad of Canoptic Wraiths will move up the board up to 12 inches, and they will also declare an advance. And here's their advance roll, rolling 4 additional inches for up to 16 inches of total movement. And unfortunately, because the crater is in the way and it's making them way too wobbly, since the Canoptic Wraiths are incredibly top-heavy, we will have to use these upside-down square bases to represent the Canoptic Wraith models and their position on the board. The wounded one is this one back here in the bottom corner, and so eventually the Canoptic Wraith models will be placed back into their correct positions once they are no longer sitting on a crater. This Silver Ghost Arc will have the squad of 10 Necron warriors inside disembark out in front, and they will finish their disembarkation like so. And now the squad of 10 Necron warriors will march up the board up to 5 inches. And the warriors will finish their movement right here. This one keeps falling over, but it's supposed to be standing up right there. Now the Silver Ghost Arc will move up a few inches to get right back behind the warriors, and it will finish its movement like so. Next, the squad of 10 Immortals are going to disembark from the Tomb World out in front of this Night Scythe, and the Immortals will finish their disembarkation like so, and now they will move up to 5 inches up the board. And the 10 Immortals will finish their movement like so. Now the Black Night Scythe is going to pivot up to 90 degrees to its left and move up the board at least 20 inches, but no more than 60. And it will finish its movement like so. Finally, this Annihilation Barge will move up to 12 inches over to here, and it will finish its movement like so. Now at the end of the movement phase, thanks to this Ghost Arc being within 3 inches of the squad of 9 Necron warriors, they will get a second chance at reanimation. So rolling a dice, and thanks to the Cryptek looking for a 4-up, and they fail with a 3. So the one downed warrior still will not come back. Also, before we go any further, the Necrons are going to use the stratagem Adaptive Subroutines for 1 command point, bring them from 8 down to 7. Use this stratagem after a Canoptic unit from your army has advanced. That unit can still shoot and or charge this turn, and that will be used on the Canoptic Wraiths. So going into the shooting phase, we will begin with this squad of 10 Immortals, firing everything they have in rapid fire range into this squad of Plague Drones. 20 shots with their Gauss blasters, hitting on 3. Getting 15 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s. Getting 8 wounds. 8, 5 up and vulnerable saves. Passing 5 and failing 3. And 1 damage piece, so 3 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls. Passing 1 but failing 2. So 1 regular Plague Drone in the back will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 2. And now the Necrons will use the stratagem Methodical Destruction for 2 command points, bring them from 7 down to 5. Use this stratagem after a Sawtech unit from your army has inflicted an unsafe wound on an enemy unit. Add 1 to hit rolls for friendly Sawtech units that target the same enemy unit this phase. And this, of course, will be against the Plague Drones. So now this squad of 10 Necron warriors will fire rapid fire into the squad of Plague Drones. 20 shots with their Gauss flares, hitting on 2s. Getting 18 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s. Getting 7 wounds. 7 5 up and vulnerable saves, failing all 7. And now 7 5 up disgustingly resilient, passing 4 and failing 3. So this regular Plague Drone will lose its final 2 wounds and be killed off. And then this regular Plague Drone right here will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 3. Next, the Silver Ghost Arc will fire everything that it has in rapid fire range into the squad of 5 Plague Drones. 20 shots from the 2 Gauss Flare arrays, hitting on 2s, getting 16 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, getting 4 wounds. 4 5 up and vulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 3. 1 damage piece, so 3 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, and failing all 3. So this regular Plague Drone will lose its final 3 wounds and be killed off. Now this Annihilation Barge will fire everything that it has into this squad of 4 Plague Drones. 3 shots from the Gauss Cannon, hitting on 2s, getting 2 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 1 wound. 1 5 up and vulnerable save, which passes. 8 shots from the Twin Tesla Destructor, hitting on 2s, getting 6 hits. But 3 of them are Tesla, so actually getting 12 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 9 wounds. 9 5 up and vulnerable saves, passing 4 and failing 5. 1 damage piece, so 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 3 and failing 2. So the final regular Plague plague drone will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 2. Now this silver annihilation barge will fire everything that it has into this squad of 4 plague drones, beginning with 3 shots from the gauze cannon hitting on 2s, getting 2 hits. Strength 6 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which passes. 8 shots from the twin Tesla destructor hitting on 2s, getting 5 hits. One of them is a Tesla, so actually getting 7 hits. Strength 7 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 4 wounds. 4 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 3, and they are 1 damage piece, so 3 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, failing all 3. So the final regular plague drone will lose its final 2 wounds and be killed off. And then the instrument will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 3. So now the Black Knight side will fire everything that he has into the Warlord Rodigus. 8 shots from the 2 Tesla destructors, hitting on 4s because subtracting 1 from hit rolls, which means of course it's impossible to get Tesla, getting 3 hits. Strength 7 versus toughness 7 means wounding on 4s and failing to wound. So now the Silver Knight side will fire everything that it has into Rodigus. 8 shots from the 2 Tesla destructors, hitting on 4s, getting 4 hits, no Tesla, thanks to -1 to hit rolls. Strength 7 versus toughness 7 means wounding on 4s, getting 3 wounds. 3 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 2 and failing 1. 1 damage piece, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient, which passes. Next, the Cryptek is going to fire its Staff of Light into this squad of plague drones. 3 shots hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Strength 5 versus toughness 5 means wounding on a 4, and it fails to wound. Now this squad of 9 warriors will fire everything that they have into this squad of plague drones. 18 shots from their gauze flares, hitting on 3s, getting 11 hits. Strength 4 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, getting 3 wounds. 3 5-up invulnerable saves, failing all 3, and 1 damage piece, so 3 5-up disgustingly resilient, passing 1 and failing 2. So this regular plague drone right here will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 2. Finally, this Ghost Ark will fire everything that it has in rapid fire range into this squad of plague drones. 20 shots from the 2 gauze flare arrays, hitting on 3s, getting 11 hits. Strength 4 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, and there is a cocked dice in there. So getting 4 hits and 1 cocked dice, 4 wounds and 1 cocked dice, so here's the reroll on the cocked dice, which does cause a 5th wound. 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 4. 1 damage piece, so 4 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, and failing all 4. So the wounded plague drone will lose its final 2 wounds and be killed off. And then this regular plague drone right here will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 2. Going into the assault phase, we have 1 charge to declare, which will be this squad of 6 Canoptic Wraiths declaring a charge into Rodigus. And Rodigus will overwatch with his streams of brackish filth, 2d6 attacks, getting just 6 attacks. This weapon automatically hits its target, so 6 hits. Strength 7 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, but thanks to Virulent Blessing, adding 1 to wound rolls, so actually wounding on 2s. And this weapon does state you can reroll failed wound rolls for this weapon, so it is not required to reroll, which means we can keep the 2s. And it also means that 5s and 6s will both activate Locus of Virulence, and 6s are essentially a wound roll of 7-up, and so they will activate the double damage from Virulent Blessing. And so what all that means is we have 7 wounds, 3 of which are 1 damage, 1 is 2 damage, and 2 are 3 damage. So we will begin by having the Necrons take the 2 damage attack first with a 3-up invulnerable save, which fails. So 2 damage will go through, which will kill off the wounded Canoptic Wraith. Then we will have the Necrons attempt to save the 2 3 damage attacks, 2 3-up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 1. So that is 3 more damage. So a second fully healthy Canoptic Wraith will go down. And now for the 3 1 damage attacks, 3 3-up invulnerable saves, passing all 3. And so here's the charge range from the Canoptic Wraiths, getting a 4 and a cocked dice. Here's the reroll on the cocked dice, getting 9 inches total, going through a crater. However, I'm not sure we actually resolved whether or not, from a previous video, whether or not the Wraith form ability would allow them to ignore craters, but it won't matter in this case because they're only about 2 inches away, and even with -2 remove from the crater, they still get 7 inches of charge, so they will make it in. And so here they are. All 4 Canoptic Wraiths are now within an inch of Rodigus. So going into the fight phase, we will begin with the Canoptic Wraiths placing their attacks onto Rodigus. 3 attacks apiece from the Canoptic Wraiths with their Vicious Claws for 12 attacks total, hitting on 3s, getting just 6 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, getting 3 wounds. 3 5-up vulnerable saves, failing all 3. And they are 2 damage apiece, so 6 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 3 and failing 3. So Rodigus will fall from 18 starting wounds down to 15, and now Rodigus will attack back, beginning with 5 attacks base with the Gnarl Rod, hitting on 2s, getting 4 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, but getting to add 1 to wound rolls thanks to Virulent Blessing, so actually wounding on 2s. And once again, this weapon states you can reroll failed wound rolls for this weapon, so the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will reroll the 1, but they will leave the 2 alone. And here's the reroll. Still rolling a 1. So 3 wounds, and none of them will activate the special ability from Virulent Blessing or Locus of Virulence. 3 up and vulnerable saves, passing all 3. Now for Fanged Maw, which will do D6 additional attacks, doing 3 additional attacks, hitting on 2s, getting 2 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, but actually 2s because of Virulent Blessing, getting 2 wounds, one of which will be 3 damage and one of which will be 1 damage. So 3 up invulnerable against the 3 damage, and it will go through. So 1 Canoptic Wraith is killed off, and then 1 3 up invulnerable save against the 1 damage, which will also go through. So another Canoptic Wraith will fall from 3 starting wounds down to 2. And now for D6 additional attacks from the Attendant's Claws and Teeth, and it will do just 1 attack, hitting on a 2. And it hits. Strength 2 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 6, but actually wounding on 5s thanks to Virulent Blessing, but failing to wound. So going into the morale phase, for Necrons turn 1, this squad of Plague Drones lost 1 model this turn, and they have a leadership of 7, so it's impossible for them to fail. However, thanks to their demonic icon, they will still roll for their morale check, and if they roll a 1, they automatically pass, and a slain model is returned. So here's their morale check roll, and they roll a 1, so they get their slain model back. And so the slain Plague Drone is returned right there. This squad of Plague Drones lost 3 models this turn, and they have leadership of 7, but they are within 6 inches of a greater demon and therefore can use its leadership of 10, so it's impossible for them to fail a morale check after only losing 3 models. But since they still have a demonic icon alive in the squad, they will still take their morale check, and on a roll of a 1, a slain model will be returned. So here's their morale check roll, and they roll a 6, so they pass and nothing happens. Finally, this squad of Canoptic Wraiths lost 3 models this turn, but they have leadership of 10, and so it is impossible for them to fail a morale check after only losing 3 models. So now taking a look at the tactical objective cards, the Necrons failed to complete Overwhelming Firepower, they failed to complete Age of the Machine, and because the game is not over, they did not complete Dust and Ashes. And because the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have no vehicles, the Necrons will throw Age of the Machine away. And I apologize about this, but I went back and looked at the footage because I felt like something was off, and I completely forgot to subtract 1 from the hit rolls from the Canoptic Wraiths in close combat. And of course, out of their 6 hits, 4 of them were 3s. So they actually only got 2 hits out of 12 attacks. So we're going to completely redo the wound rolls from the Canoptic Wraiths after that hit roll. So just 2 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, failing to wound. So Rodigus will actually not take any damage. So we will actually remove the wound counters from Rodigus, and he is still at a full 18 wounds. And so at the end of Necrons turn 1, we currently have a score of 0 victory points for the Necrons and 1 victory point for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle. Going into Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 2, a reminder that the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have 9 command points available, and the Necrons have 5 command points available. Also a reminder that the Chaos Demons of Nurgle held on to the tactical objective card Mission Critical Objective 5 from the previous turn. So in order to get up to a total of 3 active tactical objective cards, they drew 2 new ones, and so the Chaos Demons of Nurgle drew the Cycle of Life. Score 1 victory point if an enemy infantry unit was destroyed during this turn. If an enemy infantry unit was destroyed by one of your Nurgle demon units during this turn, score D3 victory points instead. And the Glory of Khorne, score 1 victory point if an enemy character was destroyed during this turn. If an enemy character was destroyed by one of your Khorne demon units during this turn, score D3 victory points instead. And objective marker 5 is this one right here, in between a squad of Necron warriors and a squad of immortals. Also, at the start of the turn, we need to resolve reverberating summons from the Great Unclean One's Doomsday Bell onto the squad of 3 Plague Drones. And so looking for a 4-up, and they fail with a 1. But the Chaos Demons of Nurgle are going to use 1 command point, going from 9 down to 8, for a command reroll to reroll the 1. And here's the reroll, and they roll a 4. So they will get a slain model back. And the slain model will be brought back right here, over an inch away from any enemy models and within unit coherency. So now going into the movement phase, for Chaos Demons of Nurgle, turn 2, we will begin by having this squad of 4 Plague Drones move up the board up to 10 inches. Right to there. The injured instrument is this one in the back. Next, the Great Unclean One, armed with Plague Flail, is going to move up the board up to 7 inches. And he will finish his movement like so. Now this Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings is going to move up the board up to 12 inches. And he will finish his movement right there. This squad of 10 Plague Bearers sitting on objective marker 1 will remain still. This squad of 10 Plague Bearers sitting on objective marker 2 will remain still. This third squad of 10 Plague Bearers sitting on objective marker 3 will also remain still. The Warlord Rodigus will remain locked in combat with the 3 Canoptic Raids. This Great Unclean One, armed with Corruption, will move up the board up to 7 inches towards the Canoptic Raids. And the Great Unclean One will finish its movement right there. This squad of 6 Plague Drones will now move up the board up to 10 inches. And they will finish their movement like so. Finally, this Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings will move up the board up to 12 inches. And it will finish its movement right there. At the end of the movement phase, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle are going to use the stratagem Revolting Regeneration for 2 command points, bring them from 8 down to 6. Use this stratagem at the end of your movement phase, select one of your Nurgle demon units. One model in the unit regains D3 lost wounds. If there are no wounded models in the unit, and that unit has suffered any casualties, a single slain model from the unit is returned to play with 1 wound remaining. And this stratagem will be used on the squad of 6 Plague Drones in order to attempt to get this Plague Drone back up from 2 wounds to full 4 wounds. So rolling a d3 and getting 3 wounds back, but can only get a max of 2 wounds back. So the wounded Plague Drone will go back up from 2 wounds to a full 4 wounds. And now the squad of 6 Plague Drones is back to full strength. Going into the Psychic phase, we will start with this Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings attempting to manifest Smite onto the black Ghost Ark in front of him. And Smite has a warp card value of 5. And it passes with a 5. So we'll do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 1 mortal wound. So this Ghost Ark will fall from 14 starting wounds down to 13. Next, this Demon Prince over here will attempt to manifest Fleshy Abundance onto this squad of 4 Plague Drones. And Fleshy Abundance has a warp charge value of 5, and it passes with a 7. And Fleshy Abundance regenerates D3 lost wounds, but this squad is only missing 1 wound, so they will get the 1 wound back on the instrument, bring the instrument back up from 3 wounds to a full 4 wounds. Now the Great Unclean One, armed with Plague Flail, will attempt to manifest Smite onto the squad of 10 Necron warriors in front of him, and then he will also attempt to manifest Nurgle's Rot, which will affect all non-Nurgle units within 7 inches. And Nurgle's Rot will affect the Necron warriors and the squad of Immortals. So first attempting Smite, which now has a warp charge value of 6, and it passes with a 9. So we'll do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 3 mortal wounds. So 3 Necron warriors will go down. And now for Nurgle's Rot, needing a 7 or more, and rolling a 7. So Nurgle's Rot will go off. And now we need to roll a d6 for both of the units within 7 inches of the Great Unclean One, and on a 4-up, they suffer an additional d3 mortal wounds. So looking for a 4-up against the Warriors, and they will suffer d3 mortal wounds, and then looking for a 4-up against the Immortals, and they will not. So d3 mortal wounds against the Warriors, and they will suffer 2 mortal wounds. So 2 more Warriors will go down. Now this Great Unclean One, armed with Corruption, will attempt to manifest Stream of Corruption and Smite onto the squad of 3 Canoptic Raids. Starting with Stream of Corruption, which has a warp charge value of 5, and it passes with a 7. So D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 3 mortal wounds. So the wounded Canoptic Wraith will lose its final 2 wounds and be killed off. And then one more Canoptic Wraith will lose 1 wound, going from 3 starting wounds down to 2. And now for Smite, which now has a warp chart value of 7, and it passes with a 9. So another D3 mortal wounds, and it will do just 1 mortal wound. So the wounded Wraith will fall from 2 wounds down to 1 left. Before we go any further, I do need to resolve Rodagus's Warlord trait, which I had forgotten at the beginning of the turn. And Rodagus has the Warlord trait Pestilent Miasma. Roll a dice for each enemy unit that is within 1 inch of your Warlord at the start of your turn. On a roll of 4 up, that unit suffers a mortal wound. So looking for a 4 up, and they fail, so a mortal wound will not be given to the raids. So finally, in the Psychic phase, Rodagus will attempt to manifest Miasma of Pestilence onto himself, and he will also attempt to manifest Smite onto the squad of raids. Beginning with Miasma of Pestilence, which has a warp card value of 6, and it passes with an 11. So it will go off, and thanks to a special rule, Deluge of Nurgle, it will do 1 mortal wound to the raids because they are the closest enemy unit, which will of course finish off the Wraith that's down to 1 wound. And so now for Smite, which now has a warp chart value of 8. And that will also pass with an 11. So it will do 1 mortal wound thanks to Deluge of Nurgle, but it will also do D6 mortal wounds thanks to Smite. It will do just 1 mortal wound, but the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will use 1 command point now that it's the Psychic phase. For a command reroll, bring them from 6 down to 5 in order to reroll the 1. And looking for anything other than a 1, rolling another 1. So only doing 2 mortal wounds total. So the final Wraith will fall from 3 starting wounds down to 1 left. Going into the shooting phase, we will begin by having the squad of 4 Plague Drones fire their Death's Heads into the squad of 5 Necron Warriors. 2 shots apiece for 8 shots total. They did not advance this turn, so actually hitting on 4s. No rerolls, because they're too far away from the Demon Prince. Not that it mattered though, getting 6 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s thanks to themselves. Getting 3 wounds and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll. Still failing to wound, so getting 3 wounds total. No AP and all of the warriors are in the crater, so 3 up armor saves, passing 2 and failing 1. So 1 more warrior will go down. So now this Great Unclean One will fire his Plague Flail into the squad of 4 Necron warriors. 3 shots with the Plague Flail, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to being within 6 inches of the Demon Prince, and getting 3 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds. And now that it's the shooting phase, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will use 1 command point going from 5 down to 4 for a command reroll to reroll the 2. And here's the reroll, getting a 3rd wound. Minus 3 AP, but plus 1 thanks to the crater, so 3 6-up armor saves. And passing 2 of them, only failing 1. But they are 2 damage apiece, and this weapon specifically allows the excess damage to go onto extra models, so the damage will carry over, which means 2 models will be killed off. Finally, in the shooting phase, this squad of 6 Plague Drones will fire all of their Death's Heads into the squad of 9 Necron Warriors. 12 shots with their Death's Heads, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Demon Prince, getting 5 hits and 2 rerolls. And here's the 2 rerolls, failing to get any more hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 1 wound, 1 fail, and 3 rerolls. And here's the rerolls, getting 2 wounds total. No AP, so 2 4-up armor saves, and failing both. So 2 warriors will go down. So going into the assault phase, we have 6 charges to declare. The first will be this Demon Prince of Nurgle declaring a multi-charge into the Ghost Ark and the squad of 2 warriors. The second will be the Great Unclean One armed with Plague Flail declaring a multi-charge into the squad of 2 warriors, the Ghost Ark, and the squad of Immortals. The third charge will be this squad of Plague Drones declaring a charge purely into the squad of 10 Immortals. The fourth charge will be the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption, charging into the lone Canoptic Wraith. Fifth will be this Demon Prince of Nurgle, charging into the Black Ghost Ark. And the sixth and final charge will be the squad of 6 Plague Drones, charging into the squad of 7 Necron Warriors. And we will resolve them in that order, so beginning with this Demon Prince into the Warriors and the Ghost Ark. We will start with the Overwatch from the Warriors, so 4 shots hitting on 6s, failing to hit. 20 shots from the Ghost Ark and its 2 Gauze Flare arrays hitting on 6s. getting 3 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 5s and failing to wound. And here's the charge distance, getting 5 inches. And so the Demon Prince is now in combat with both. Now we will resolve the charge from the Great Unclean One. The primary target will be the squad of 2 warriors. And since the squad of 2 warriors and the Ghost Ark are already engaged, only the squad of Immortals will be overwatching. So 20 shots in rapid fire range, hitting on 6s. And there is a cocked dice in there. So getting 2 hits and re-rolling the cocked dice, failing to hit, so just 2 hits total. Strength 5 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, getting 1 wound, 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails, and 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient, which also fails. So this Great Unclean One will fall from 18 starting wounds down to 17. And here's the charge range, getting 6 inches, but that won't be enough since he's charging through the crater even to make it into combat with the warriors, as he would need 5 inches to make it within an inch, so that is a failed charge. But now that it's the assault phase, Chaos Demons of Nurgle are going to use 1 command point to bring them from 4 down to 3 for a command reroll to reroll the 2. And here's the reroll, still failing the charge. Now we will resolve the charge from the squad of 4 plague drones, which means the Immortals will get to Overwatch again. 20 shots, hitting on 6s, getting 4 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails, and 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient, which passes. And here's the charge range, getting 5 inches. And they do get to add 1 thanks to their instrument, so actually getting 6 inches of charge. In order to get into the position that they want, they will have to charge partially through a crater, so we will subtract 2 from that, so they will actually get a 4-inch charge. But that will still be more than enough to get them into combat. And they will finish their charge like so, in combat. Next, we will resolve the charge from the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption. No Overwatch, so here's the charge range, rolling 5 inches, and that will not be enough going through the crater, so that is a failed charge. So now this Demon Prince will charge into the Ghost Ark. 20 shots from the 2 Gauze Flare arrays, hitting on 6s, getting 3 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 5s, getting 2 wounds. Minus 1 AP, so 2 4-up armor saves, passing 1 and failing 1. And 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient, which passes. And here's the charge range, getting 7 inches. And the Demon Prince is now locked in combat. Finally, we will now resolve the charge from the Plague Drones into the Warriors. 14 shots since there's only 7 of them left, hitting on 6s, getting 3 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails, and it's 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient, which passes. And here's their charge range, adding 1 thanks to the instrument, getting 3 inches of charge, and they will make it in. And so they will all make it in. Unfortunately for the Necron characters, the Overlord and the Cryptek, they will not be able to heroically intervene. So going into the fight phase, we will begin with the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings over here, and he will split his 7 attacks. He will put 4 attacks onto the Ghost Ark and 3 attacks onto the 2 warriors. Starting with the 3 attacks against the 2 Necron warriors, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits and a reroll. And here's the reroll, getting 3 hits total. Strength 7 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 3s, getting 3 wounds. 3 6-up armor saves, passing 2 and a cocked dice. And here's the cocked dice, and passing the 3rd, so no damage taken. So now the 4 attacks onto the Ghost Ark, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, getting 4 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 3s, getting 3 wounds, minus 2 AP, so 3 6-up armor saves, passing 1 and failing 2, and they are 2 damage piece, so Quantum Shielding will ignore on rolls of 1, and it will ignore 1. So only losing 2 wounds. So this Ghost Ark will fall from 14 starting wounds down to 12. And so now the Necrons will use the stratagem counteroffensive for 2 command points, bring them from 5 down to 3. This stratagem is used right after an enemy unit that charges fought. Select one of your own eligible units and fight with the next. And this will be used to give the lone Canoptic Wraith one last shot at doing some damage to Rodigus before he is inevitably killed. So 3 attacks with the Vicious Claws, hitting on 4s. Because of Miasma of Pestilence, subtracting 1 from hit rolls, and getting 2 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s and failing to wound. So now this squad of 4 plague drones will pile in and then fight against the Immortals. And now all 4 will be able to fight. Starting with 5 attacks from their plague swords, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Demon Prince nearby, hitting 4 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, still failing to hit. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling all fails, hitting 2 wounds and 2 rerolls. And here's the rerolls, getting 1 additional wound. Locus of Violence won't matter since the Immortals are only 1 wound apiece, so we don't have to roll the save for the 6 separately. No AP, so 3 up armor saves, passing 2 and failing 1. So 1 Immortal will go down. Now for the 16 attacks from their Prehensile Proboscis, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 9 hits and 3 rerolls. And here's the 3 rerolls, getting 2 more hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling all fails, getting 5 wounds and 6 rerolls. And here's the rerolls, getting 9 wounds total. No AP, so 9 3-up armor saves, passing 7 and failing 2. So 2 more Immortals will go down. Now this Demon Prince will place all of his attacks onto the Black Ghost Ark. 7 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s thanks to himself, getting 6 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, still failing to hit. Strength 7 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 3s, hitting 3 wounds. Minus 2 AP means 3 6-up armor saves, passing 1 and failing 2. And because they are 2 damage apiece, they can be ignored on 1s thanks to Quantum Shielding, and failing to ignore both. So 4 damage will go through, and this Ghost Ark will fall from 13 wounds down to 9. The last charging unit, the squad of 6 plague drones, will now place all of their attacks onto the squad of 7 warriors. Starting with 7 attacks from the plague swords, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, hitting 4 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling fails, rerolling everything. And here's the rerolls. Getting 4 wounds. No AP, so 4 up armor saves, passing 2 and failing 2. So 2 more warriors will go down. And now for 24 attacks from the Prehensile Proboscis, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s. And that will be a cocked dice right there. So 15 hits, 4 rerolls, and 1 cocked dice. And so here's the cocked dice, which will get a hit, and then the 4 rerolls, getting 3 more hits for 19 hits total. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling everything. So 4 wounds and 15 rerolls. And here's the rerolls, getting 9 wounds. No AP, so 9 4-up armor saves, passing 6 and failing 3. So 3 more warriors will go down, leaving 2 left alive in the squad. So now going into units that did not charge, beginning with the Chaos Demons of Nurgle, we will first resolve Rodriguez onto the lone Canoptic Wraith. Rodriguez will place his 5 attack space with the Gnarl Rod onto the Canoptic Wraith, hitting on 2s, getting 3 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, luckily rerolling everything, so getting 3 rerolls. And here's the 3 rerolls, getting 2 wounds. Locus of Violence won't matter, since that Wraith is down to 1 wound. 2 3-up invulnerable saves, and passing both. Now for the Fanged Maw, which will do D6 additional attacks, getting 3 attacks, hitting on 2s, getting 3 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds, no rerolls, and 2 3-up invulnerable saves, failing both. So there's no way for the Wraith to save it, so the Wraith will lose his last wound and be killed off. And that is first blood. And Rodriguez will not consolidate because he would have to consolidate backwards towards the Night Size because the Night Size are closer than the Annihilation Barge, next to the Necron deployment. So now going to the Necron units, and they're fighting back, we will begin with this squad of 2 warriors on the squad of 6 plague drones. 2 attacks hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s and failing to wound. Now for the Ghost Ark at 9 wounds, attacking back onto the Demon Prince. 3 attacks hitting on 6s, getting 1 hit. Strength 6 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on a 4, and it wounds. 1 3-up armor save, which fails. And it's only 1 damage, so 1 6-up or 1 5-up disgustingly resilient roll, which also fails. So the Demon Prince will fall from 8 starting wounds down to 7. This squad of 7 Immortals will now all place their attacks onto the plague drones. 7 attacks, hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits. Strength 4 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails. 1 5-up disgustingly resilient, which also fails. So the regular plague drone over here will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 3. Next, the 2 warriors will attack back against the Demon Prince. 2 attacks, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Strength 4 versus toughness 6 means wounding on 5s, getting 1 wound and a cocked dice. And here's the reroll on the cocked dice, still failing to wound. 1 3-up armor save, which passes. Finally, the Ghost Ark will fight back against the Demon Prince. 3 attacks, hitting on 6s, failing to hit. Finally, going into the morale phase. For Chaos Demons of Nurgle, turn 2, this could be very important because it could result in victory points for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle. So we will begin with this squad of 2 warriors. They lost 8 models this turn and they have a leadership of 10, which means that if they roll a 3, they will lose 1 more model, and if they roll a 4 up, they will lose both of the models, which will result in that infantry squad being killed off, which will give the Chaos Demons of Nurgle Cycle of Life. And so because of that, the Necrons are going to use the stratagem Insane Bravery for 2 command points, bring them from 3 down to 1. You can automatically pass a single morale check. This stratagem must be used before taking the test, so that squad of 2 warriors will not lose any more models. This squad of Immortals lost 3 models this turn and they have a leadership of 10, so it is impossible for them to fail a morale check after only losing 3 models. And finally, this squad of warriors lost 7 models this turn because 1 model was lost in the previous turn. So because of that, on a roll of a 4, they will lose 1 more model since they have a leadership of 10, and on a roll of a 5 up, both models will be lost. And so here's their morale check roll, and they roll a 1, so they pass and nothing happens. So taking a look at the tactical objective cards, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle failed to complete Mission Critical Objective 5 because it is still being controlled by Necron troop choices. They failed to complete Cycle of Life because the Wraiths are not an infantry squad, and they failed to complete the Glory of Khorne because no Necron characters were killed. But the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will hold on to all 3. And so at the end of Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 2, the score currently sits at 2 victory points for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle, thanks to First Blood, and 0 victory points for the Necrons. Going into Necrons turn 2, a reminder that the Necrons have 1 command point available, and the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have 3 command points available. A reminder that the Necrons held on to the tactical objective cards Overwhelming Firepower and Dust and Ashes from the previous turn, and so in order to get them up to 3 active tactical objective cards, they drew 1 new one, and they drew Slaughter the Living. Score 1 victory point if at least 1 enemy unit was completely destroyed during this turn. And so at this point, the Necrons are going to concede the game, which might seem a little early, but I will explain the reasoning behind that in my final thoughts. And so at the beginning of Necrons turn 2, we have a major victory for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle through concession. Neither side achieved Slay the Warlord. Neither side achieved Linebreaker, because I don't think that the Night Sides are able to get Linebreaker since they are flyers, and Games Workshop has specifically stated in either the rulebook or the FAQ that flyers are not allowed to hold objective markers, and because they can't hold objective markers, I would assume that they also cannot hold Linebreaker. I'm not sure about that though, so please let me know in the comments down below whether that's correct or not. But because of that, the Necron Overlord is still alive at the end of the game, so they will get 1 victory point for Dust and Ashes, which means that the Necrons will have a final score of 1 victory point, and the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will have a final score of 2 victory points. So, now that it's been announced that the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have secured a major victory over the Necrons, thanks to a concession from the Necrons at the beginning of Necrons turn 2, and we also have a final score in victory points of 2 victory points for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle versus 1 victory point for the Necrons. I can go over 1 or 2 of my final thoughts on this game. First and foremost, of course, is the reason for concession, and the main reason for concession is that the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have 3 obtainable tactical objective cards that are are active, and the Necrons do not. The only reason the Necrons were able to complete Dust and Ashes is because the game ended right now, but looking at the firepower that the Necrons have left on the board, I do not believe that they had a chance at shooting any units to death for overwhelming firepower, and I do not believe that they could completely destroy any of the Nurgle units. Since the card states completely destroy, whereas many of the other tactical objective cards just say destroy, I take that to mean that the unit has to have been at full health at the beginning of the player turn, and then completely destroyed at the end of the turn. And so of course that would mean that this Demon Prince, who is down to 7 wounds, would not count for that. The Great Unclean One, who is down to 17 wounds, would not count for that. And the squad of 4 Plague Drones would also not count for that. So the Necrons would somehow have to completely destroy this squad of 6 Plague Drones, and we've seen how resilient the Plague Drones have been in not only this battle, but all of the previous battles in this group. Or they could attempt to destroy Rodigus, who is still at full health, the Great Unclean One with Corruption, who's at full health, one of the squads of 10 Plague Bearers, or the other Demon Prince who is still at 8 wounds, but most likely they would not be able to do that within a single player turn. And so I do not believe that they would be able to complete overwhelming firepower or slaughter the living, and of course if the game does not end this turn, they don't get Dust and Ashes. So the Necrons at the end of this turn would still be at 0 victory points, whereas next turn, most likely, Chaos Demons of Nurgle would be able to achieve 3, if not more victory points based off of how the D3 rolls go. So that is the first part of why the Necrons conceded at this point. The second part, which was briefly mentioned in terms of firepower, we have to remember that there are 2 squads of Necron warriors locked in combat, both of which are only down to 2 models. They could get some back thanks to reanimation protocol, but they will not be able to shoot this turn, whether they fall back or not, and if they stay in combat, they will most likely be slaughtered. Same with the squad of Immortals. While they still have 7 models left, and they could get more back with reanimation protocol, they cannot shoot, and if they stay in combat, they will be slaughtered. And so the problem is, the Necrons really only have 2 Annihilation Barges, 2 Ghost Arcs, the squad of warriors embarked in one of the Ghost Arcs, the Cryptek, the Overlord, and the 2 Night Size left in terms of firepower. And I don't see that firepower doing a whole lot to this Nurgle army if Necron's turn 1 was any indication of what the Necrons were going to be able to do in this battle. So because of how resilient Nurgle is, and how much firepower has already been killed from the Necron side, I don't have faith that the Necrons can turn this battle around and end up winning it. So because of that, we might as well end the game and move on to the next one. And hopefully, for the Necron's sake, the next one starts off a lot better. Also, a third reason for why the Necrons needed to concede this game is that this Ghost Arc right here, in combat with this Demon Prince, cannot shoot since he's locked in combat. However, since he can fly, he could fall back and fire normally, but if he falls back, that means that Demon Prince is no longer engaged, and next turn, especially if he survives, would simply be able to jump over and charge into the Overlord, or the Cryptek, or that squad of warriors, or recharge the Ghost Arc, and of course that would put the Warlord's life in danger. And of course if the Overlord is killed, that's Slay the Warlord, besides permanently taking away Dust and Ashes from the Necrons. Also, since it's just a squad of 2 warriors engaged with the squad of Plague Drones, even if they get some models back, I have full confidence in the Plague Drones that they would be able to slaughter any warriors that were left in combat. And so of course if that happened, then the Plague Drones once again would be free to engage whoever they want, and they could help against the Overlord, or the Cryptek, or the Ghost Arc. And if the warriors fell back, then once again the Plague Drones start the turn unengaged. So it's sort of a lose-lose situation for the Necrons at this point. Do you fall back so that you don't get slaughtered right away, but then leave them unengaged, or do you stay in combat and possibly get slaughtered and leave them unengaged anyways? And I do understand that the Necrons have living metal and reanimation protocols, but I don't think that will be enough to stop the Chaos Demons of Nurgle at this point, considering the fact that all that is dead on the Nurgle side is 2 Plague Drones from one of the squads, and it is entirely possible that they could get one of those Plague Drones back in the next Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn thanks to reverberating summons. So I apologize about this battle report being a little bit short, but I really hope you still enjoyed this battle report. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.